looks like the time has come again.
Last year, I made a video suggesting that the showcase mode should be retired from WWE 2K games, and taking examples from decades-old WWE games, I tried to back up my reasons for this suggestion. Not only that, using these older games as a source of inspiration, I also suggested what should be done in the modern games instead of the showcase mode. That video has been the most successful video of this channel so far. So of course, I came back again this year with 10, depending on how you count them, practical suggestions and ways to improve my favorite game mode, and honestly the only game mode I play, MyGM.
So why don't we take a walk?
But before diving to specific features and improvements I'm going to suggest, we must discuss certain, let's call them philosophical aspects that would help us understand why these suggestions would benefit the GM mode and make it more fun.
I have a lot of things I want to get off my chest.
Discussing MyGM inevitably involves discussing the universe mode, as I believe these two modes are more intertwined than appears on the surface. In the universe mode, you basically play the role of a wrestling god, not talking about JBL, where every single thing is in your control. There is no fan pleasing, no money management, virtually no restriction whatsoever, and therefore no real fail state or challenge. It is a sandbox in the truest sense. The purpose of this sandbox is to create your own version of the WWE universe and tell your own stories with the help of a plethora of rivalry actions and cutscenes, and by exercising ultimate control on every aspect. In the GM mode, on the other hand, you play the role of something in between a kayfabe GM managing kayfabe superstars and a WWE employee who has to manage other WWE employees behind the curtain, while also competing with other GMs to make the brand you manage the top brand in the company. Juggling between these two roles in the GM mode, one who kayfabe interrupts a match on behalf of a particular superstar, and one who has to deal with the low morale of a wrestler who is sick of having to lose every match and wants you to make sure he or she wins the next one, involves a lot of moving parts that are not directly in your control, unlike the universe mode. This lack of control and the challenge that comes from it is what makes the GM mode unique, and it's the primary fun factor of the GM mode. But since this mode is primarily menu based and playing the matches you set up is not incentivized in any significant way, in its current state, it completely lacks the sense of fantasy fulfillment that the universe mode offers. While I'm not asking it to become another universe mode, or even for it to include cutscenes and details like the universe mode, I think the inherent lack of control and unpredictability that makes MyGM fun should be pushed even further to incorporate that universe mode-like opportunity for storytelling that it's currently missing. A lot more variation, curveballs, and surprises should be introduced to stop the now much longer 50-week seasons from becoming dull and repetitive, as they currently are. Disclaimer, I'm going to be using cutscenes while I discuss further, just for demonstration by the way. I'm not really suggesting that we should have cutscenes in the GM mode.
Okay, it's decided.
In 2K25, they had already added a feature where superstars with low morale often change their roles from face to heel or vice versa without the GM's input. Superstars with low morales sometimes violate code of conducts outside of the ring, which gets them suspended for weeks as punishment. But all these primarily happens in your email inbox, and apart from superstars being unavailable due to suspension, they don't affect your booking plans much. This kind of insubordination from the superstars could be taken much further to affect all aspects of gameplay and add much needed drama to the equation. A superstar who demands a title shot and gets rejected by you could automatically interfere in a title match to insert themselves in a rivalry. A superstar whom you have benched for a few weeks could get frustrated and randomly interfere in matches on your match card, trying to insert themselves in a rivalry, throwing a curveball to your plan. More on this point later when I talk about how to redesign the rivalry system in MyGM. When a superstar demands that they win their next match but doesn't get it from you, they could do a post-match attack on their opponent and injure them or take a bigger chunk of their stamina. Likewise, when they ask to not be put against the same opponent in their next match and you fail to do it, they could attack and injure the said opponent before the match begins, causing the match to be forfeited, which would result in low rating for the show. Again, we don't need cutscenes for these, unless it could be easily incorporated. These could simply show up in the post-show report, etc. But what matters here is that how you manage the superstars behind the curtain should directly reflect on the actual shows you put on every week, kind of like the real shows.
Lower the ticket prices!
This will not only make the management simulator side of the game mode more robust, but also add more storytelling element in it, which is one of the core purposes of fantasy booking to begin with. So anyone who's heavily into MyGM like I am would definitely appreciate it.
Thank you.
Now, keeping this storytelling philosophy in mind, let's dive into my 10 roughly practical suggestions about how to actually rescue MyGM from its current mediocre state.
Finally!
When starting the GM mode, we should be able to customize the shows. We should be able to customize the logo, ring, entrance, Money in the Bank briefcase, championship belts, etc. to recreate shows from previous eras, for example, or even to create completely new shows. This feature already exists in the universe mode. It just needs to be brought to MyGM. It should be easy. This year in MyGM, they added the feature to change the championship belts at the very beginning of the very first season, but you can never change them again at a later point. This should be fixed by introducing a new type of promo that would allow you to change championship belts, just like in real WWE shows. This promo could be more expensive, or it could require the use of a special power card so that you can do it only a few times during a season, or it could also have a prerequisite that only superstars above a certain popularity level can cut these belt changing promos. Likewise, there should be an option to put two titles on the line at the same time. This option is available everywhere else, so it should be easy to bring it in GM mode. Especially since this year they included a new power card to strip the championship off someone, putting double titles on the line should be easily manageable in combination with this power card. It's weird that you can only customize the draft pool when starting a new playthrough and can never change it later. This option was available even back in Smackdown vs Raw days, so I don't see why it shouldn't be available now. There is currently no option to change the attires of superstars within MyGM. Even if you create a new attire for a superstar and assign it as their default attire in the roster menu from the main menu screen, it only applies to exhibition and universe modes. The GM mode superstars still wear their default attires during matches. The only workaround is to create a separate version of the superstar and use this version instead of the original superstar in the draft pool. It's a messy workaround and should be fixed ASAP. Promos have a lot of room for improvement. Call-out promos, for example, could have an option where you can let the superstars announce what kind of a match they are going to have later in today's show, or in subsequent shows, or in the upcoming PLE. Again, it should be done in the menu. We don't need cutscenes for promos. Using this feature in a call-out promo could be made more expensive than a regular call-out promo, because it would have an impact on the rating of the match announced in the promo, so there's a loss versus gain balance. This would add meaning and cohesion to the promos rather than just having them as a means to sustain rivalries.
Hulk Hogan!
Backstage interview could be a thing that, if done before a match, would boost the match's rating. If done after a match, would boost a superstar's popularity in exchange of causing them to lose a little more stamina. This could be a good way to maintain the popularity of a superstar who loses a match. Something like a comeback reminder promo should be included in the list of promos. This would help sustain an injured superstar's popularity. As you can see, we had similar things in Smackdown vs Raw games, so
Just bring it, jabronis! Just bring it!
also, the option to book a promo instead of a match should be included. I think it reflects the real WWE shows more faithfully.
That's a nice point.
Contract signing promos should be introduced as a way to hype up high-profile PLE championship matches. Just like real shows, we should be able to book a contract signing promo instead of a match. But because virtually every contract signing ends up in a fistfight, the stamina cost of this promo could be higher than other promos. It could be the same stamina cost as a normal one-on-one match too. I don't mind. In 2K26, the scale of the GM mode has been enlarged with longer seasons, more budget, and a much larger pool of superstars that, in combination, allows each brand to draft around 30 superstars for themselves pretty easily. Also, there are so many multi-people match options available now, so it only seems logical to include multi-people rivalries as an option. It could be set up by including a new type of promo where up to 4 people can appear in it and begin the rivalry. Or when you put up 4 superstars in a match, a rivalry between all of them could begin. Or more interestingly, and I guess resembling the actual WWE shows more closely, it could be done by interferences. Right now, a superstar can have one solo rivalry and one tag rivalry simultaneously. What I'm proposing is just to expand the scope of it a little bit. Rivalries should have an option to evolve. A one-on-one rivalry after running for, let's say, 2 weeks could turn into a 3-way rivalry after a superstar interrupts a match between the one-on-one rivals, or plays a match against one of the superstars involved in a one-on-one rivalry, or does a call-out promo on both of them, etc.
I know you got a triple threat title match this Sunday, dog. Well, I just took out all 3 guys in it.
So I demand you make it a fatal 4-way.
Also, rivalries should have a sense of meaning. In Smackdown vs Raw 2007 and 8, rivalries had a story attached to them. Although, to my knowledge, these stories didn't have any significant impact, or it didn't show any cutscene if you played the matches or anything, but I liked how just the title of the stories themselves attached a sense of meaning to the rivalries. Also, they allowed for different types of rivalries. For example, some were specifically designed for women only, some involved 2 men and 1 woman, some involved a rookie versus a legend, or there was a rivalry that is specifically for deciding the number 1 contender, etc. Again, while these stories didn't show any cutscene or really had much of an impact, having some sort of story element attached to the rivalries allowed you to design long-term storytelling in your head, where for example, you could design a rookie's journey, who goes against a legend and overcoming that challenge, moves on to the number 1 contender contest, and then by winning it, goes head to head with the champion and finally completes his story. In the current way rivalries are designed in the 2K26 game mode, there is no room for imagination like that. You either have one-on-one or tag team rivalries, and that's it.
Well, that's just not good enough.
I'm not saying rivalries should be bogged down by detailed rivalry actions and whatnot like we see in the universe mode, but we should have some way to create a sort of headcanon when setting up rivalries in MyGM. I really think the developers should look into SVR 2007 and 2008. They had some really interesting ideas in their GM mode. It's great to see that they increased the number of PLEs this year, but PLE side of things need a lot more improvement. Until 2K25, PLEs were basically the same exact thing as the regular weekly shows, except with more match slots and I guess possibility to garner more fans, etc. This was still okay as it resembled the real life shows rather closely, but since 2K25 they objectively worsened it. Now every PLE is a mixed PLE where you are severely limited in the number of matches you can book. Especially if you're playing GM mode between more than 2 brands, then you literally have 1 match slot allotted to you in a PLE. That means you can have a final big concluding match of only one of your ongoing rivalries in these PLEs, and you'd have to awkwardly conclude the rest of the rivalries in these weird go-home shows before the PLE, which leaves you with massive dissatisfaction. It totally detracts from what the real-life WWE show does and just makes no sense.
What you talking about, sir?
Every PLE now has these multi-people matches where superstars from each brand compete to win a special power card. While the idea of winning a special power card that can only be attained through these special matches is good, but in practice, most of these power cards are kind of useless and or uninteresting. And most importantly, these cross-brand multi-people matches have no rivalry, no story, no build-up, or any logic behind them, so they feel very out of place and arcadey. In a game mode which is primarily built on creating and sustaining rivalries, this kind of random cross-brand matches make no sense, just like it wouldn't make sense in a real-life WWE show. I understand they try to make PLEs feel special and different than regular weekly shows, but this is possibly the worst way to do it. Instead, here's how PLEs can be implemented and made exciting. First of all, in my opinion, most PLEs should just have a set of slots for each brand to put matches based on the brand's ongoing rivalries, like the way it was before 2K25. This is how most real PLEs work, and I don't see why we have to detract from that. The only PLEs that should have these cross-brand matches are Money in the Bank, Survivor Series, and Royal Rumble, which bafflingly we don't even have in MyGM. Optionally, King of the Ring could also be included in this list because it has that tournament element. Maybe Elimination Chamber too, since that's how the PLE operates in real life. These PLEs would have 1 or 2 cross-brand multi-people matches which should be built up in the preceding weeks rather than just randomly put together on the day of the PLE. Let's say Money in the Bank is the next PLE. So throughout the preceding 4 weeks leading up to it, there will be single match slots pre-built in the show card every week which would be reserved as qualification matches. As the GM, you would decide whoever you want to put in these matches, and whoever wins these would automatically be booked in the Money in the Bank match during the PLE, and the GM won't be able to change participants in that match. And yes, Money in the Bank PLE would have cross-brand ladder matches for both men and women for an actual Money in the Bank briefcase that would operate exactly like the real life show. Whoever wins this briefcase would operate kind of like a champion, as in they would have the briefcase appearing beside them in the menus. The briefcase would also be available to be put on the line in matches and change hands, just like a championship. Most importantly, the briefcase holder would be able to cash it any time until the next year's Money in the Bank. This cash-in could happen in 3 ways. 1. You can make the superstar announce a cash-in on a special kind of promo, where there will be an option to set a show, either a regular one or a PLE, where the championship match would take place. This would create an instant rivalry between the Money in the Bank holder and the champion. Or if the champion is already in a rivalry, the Money in the Bank holder would be inserted into that rivalry, making it a 3 or 4 person feud. 2. The Money in the Bank holder could send you an email asking for permission to cash in their briefcase at the end of the next match the champion takes part in, which as the GM you could approve or disapprove like you do for GM interference requests. This post-match cash-in could be set just like an interference, but unlike how interferences could only be simulated, these matches containing cash-ins should be playable as well, so you have the option to play the match as the champion and defeat the Money in the Bank holder when he or she cashes in and retain the championship, or to play as the Money in the Bank holder and defeat the tired and beat up champion after the end of a match, just like real life. 3, and this is more interesting in my opinion, when you play or simulate any match involving the champion, there will be a random chance that during or after the match finishes, the Money in the Bank holder will automatically show up and cash in. When the Money in the Bank holder emails you about their plan to cash in the briefcase and you disapprove, their morale might get too low and they might decide to go against you and cash it in anyway. Or if their morale is low to begin with, they might choose to just cash in without even asking your permission. This will add a much needed sense of drama, surprise and unpredictability to the matches and your booking plan.
Now that's just pure genius.
This year in 2K26 we have a new invasion promo which allows you to invade a competing brand and steal some of their fans. In terms of storytelling, it doesn't do anything, so here's how it could be implemented. This invasion promo would not be available generally. It'll only appear before the mixed PLEs I proposed. For example, in the weeks leading to Survivor Series, you would be allowed to cut these invasion promos which would allow you to start rivalries with superstars from a competing brand. The competing brands would also be able to send their superstars to disrupt your matches and create rivalries with your superstars. These inter-brand rivalries would then result in traditional Survivor Series cross-brand elimination tag team matches.
This is gonna be the best match ever!
It goes without saying, but Royal Rumble should be included in the list of PLEs in GM mode, and it should have actual men's and women's Royal Rumble matches where each brand would get to put their choice of superstars in them. The number of superstars a brand is allowed to place in the Royal Rumble match could be determined by the ranking of the brand in this screen. If you decide to actually play the match, you should be allowed to take control of any superstar in it that comes from your brand. Therefore, even if the superstar you choose to play with gets eliminated, you have a fair chance of still trying with another one and win the match. The brand whose superstar wins the Royal Rumble and becomes the #1 contender would get the main event slot of WrestleMania reserved for them, giving the brand and thus the GM an upper hand in getting a high-rated, profitable match in the Mania. An automatic rivalry would be set between the Royal Rumble winner and whoever is world champion after the PLE is over, and as usual, by the time WrestleMania comes up, it could be allowed to evolve into a multi-people rivalry. The brand or brands who don't win the Royal Rumble would have one Elimination Chamber match reserved for them in the Elimination Chamber PLE to determine the #1 contender. The qualification match tournament aspect I discussed in the Money in the Bank section could also be implemented here to decide who gets to go inside the Elimination Chamber. The winner of this chamber match, like the winner of the Royal Rumble, would then have an automatic rivalry between them and the champion of their brand. The brand that wins the Royal Rumble would have their own exclusive Elimination Chamber match in the PLE where they would be able to put the championship on the line.
Are you finished?
So that's pretty much all I could think of in terms of how to rescue MyGM from its current rather dull state. If you have any other ideas, or if you agree or disagree with the points I made, please leave a comment in this video. I'd love to discuss further. Also, please like this video and subscribe to my channel. See you in the next one.